Continuing with the concept of what if analysis, let's now look at the function called goal seek, which is basically solving for desired output by changing an assumption or parameter in your model. So we talked about 1 and 2 variable data tables. This time the situation is I know what my net income I would like to achieve, and I just need to know how many units sold will produce that exact value. So I can use goal seek for that kind of question. Or another example may be my material cost is too high. What if I knew I wanted this to be at $2 million instead of $2,220,000? What would this number need to change to? So it's those kinds of questions we can answer with goal seek. So let's do some examples. I will go to the data ribbon, and it's under what if analysis, and it's right here, goal seek. And so what it's asking is, what cell do you want to set to a particular value? So let's answer that question about net income. I want my net income down here to be 500, 1, 2, 3. And then it says, okay, what cell do you want me to change? And so what are the parameters that make a difference to net income? I could choose units sold. I could choose the price of the unit. And basically in this example, that would be about it. So in this case, let's go ahead and choose how many units do I need to produce at that price to get this to 500,000. So you hit OK, it cranks through the numbers and says 3681. You can either choose to hit OK and it'll leave that number there, or you can hit cancel and it'll put it back to the 3,000. I'll go ahead and hit OK in this case. Now the one caveat with goal seek is you have to choose a cell or a cell that's going to change that is not a formula. It has to be a value. So what do I mean by that? Let's say I wanted my variable expenses to be a certain value. So I could go what if goal seek, and I'm like, all right, I want my variable expenses to be, let's just keep it at 3 million. And I want it by changing my material cost. So I choose this cell. Well, this cell is a formula. And so goal seek doesn't know there's two things that make up this formula, the material cost and the number of units. And so it doesn't know what do you want me to change in order to get this variable expense down to 3 million. And so it'll give you an error message saying cell must contain a value. What would be more accurate is to say the cell can't contain a formula, because a formula is made up of multiple components and it doesn't know which one to change in order to reach your objective. So I hit OK. Now, if I want my variable expense to be 3 million, I could point to the number of units we sold, and then that will impact that, and that's not a formula. And so now it'll say, yeah, you can only sell 3,158, and then your variable expense would be at 3 million. Let's do a couple more examples. Let's go to our car loan. This is a classic one. And basically you're saying, hey, I can only afford $600 a month. What would it take to get my loan payment to $600 a month? So we go, what if, goal seek, that cell, my monthly payment, I want to change to 600. And now, what are the things I can look at? You can look at the cost of the car, the amount you put down, your interest rate, the number of years. What you cannot click on is the amount of the loan, because that's a formula. That's a formula that's taking the car minus the down payment, and it won't know how to tweak on that, and you'll get that same error. So you can either choose the cost of the car, or you can choose the down payment, but you can't choose this amount of loan. So in this case, let's go ahead and hit cost of the car. If you can only afford 600, you can still put 10,000 down. Well, then the car can only cost 35,799. Or let's say the amount of interest you want to pay has to be a certain value for whatever reason. So I can say, all right, I want that to be 2,500. And then what cell can I change? Well, let's see what the APR would need to be. And again, I can't choose this periodic rate over here because that is a combination of this divided by 12. So all I can do is choose that 5.5% that does its numbers and says, okay, if you want to pay total $2,500 in total interest, then the APR needs to be 4.61%. So GoalSeek, easy to use, really powerful. I use it all the time to answer these simple questions one at a time.